Everyone is excited to see Mercedes' upgraded W14, but it won't come with just new exterior upgrades. This update could possibly include frame upgrades to please Hamilton's driving style. As Toto Wolff said that Mercedes are limited in their ability to fix Lewis Hamilton's sitting position problems, saying that it can only be altered between 5 and 15 centimetres. But that it won't be impossible to change, making Hamilton a happy man after driving 5 races in a car with multiple issues. As Hamilton's seating position was added to the list of issues, which included a lack of downforce, turning speed and straight line speed. "I don't know if people know," he told Australian reporters. "We sit closer to the front wheels than all the other drivers. Our cockpit is too close to the front. When you're driving, you feel like you're sitting on the front wheels, which is one of the worst feelings to feel when you're driving a car. If you were driving your car at home and you put the wheels right underneath your legs, you would not be happy when you're approaching the roundabout. So what that does is it just really changes the attitude of the car and how you perceive its movement. And it makes it harder to predict compared to when you're further back and you're sitting closer, more center." His team boss Wolff revealed at the time that it is something that Lewis expresses very clearly and emphasized the importance of listening to a 7-time world champion. A stark contrast to how Hamilton felt after the season-opening Bahrain GP, when he told the BBC that Mercedes had not listened to him when designing the W14. However, as Wolff observed, adjusting Hamilton's seating posture is not a simple cure, at least not if he wants a significant slide backwards. You can vary the cockpit position between, say, 5 and 15 centimetres, the Austrian said. "We're a little further up, and that's what irritates Lewis, and has irritated him for the past year. We don't know how much of an impact it has, but you have to take the feedback from the drivers seriously." He added, "We don't think it's a big problem from a technical point of view. We're looking at the big concept of the driver's position in the cockpit. Obviously, that's one of the most important things, and not just in terms of weight distribution, or shall we say, the rational reasons like weight distribution, aerodynamics and so on, but also where the driver has the best feeling in the car. It remains to be seen whether 15 centimetres backwards is enough for Hamilton. Do you think this will be a big boost for Hamilton's season? Leave your thoughts down below." Even if he doesn't get the precise seat he wants, Wolff believes Mercedes' next round of enhancements, originally set for Imola before the race was delayed due to floods, would provide him and Russell more drivability and pace. Speaking about the planned upgrades that consist of new suspension parts, bodywork and some other things, he added, "I don't believe in miracles, but I think that the stability of the car and the predictability for the drivers is just subpar. If we believe we can sort that out and help it by the front suspension redesign, then that's definitely a good avenue. And this could be more of an answer too on lap time than what the aerodynamic package brings, by simply unlocking much more drivability and pace." But he accepted. "I've never in my 15 years in F1 seen a silver bullet being introduced, where suddenly you unlock half a second of performance, so I very much doubt that this is going to happen here." But despite the impending arrival of a substantial upgrade package, Formula 1 expert Peter Windsor expects Mercedes may soldier on with the zero-pod car idea, leaving the big sidepod update for the W15 next year. Despite having only one win in the first year of the new ground effect rules last season, Mercedes has decided to go with a slim sidepod chassis for 2023. However, after a harsh experience at the first race in Bahrain, when George Russell and Lewis Hamilton qualified 6/10 off pole, team head Toto Wolff conceded Mercedes had gone the wrong road and requested extensive alterations to the chassis. Mercedes has been expected to debut a heavily revised car at the recently cancelled Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix, with speculation that the team would move towards a more conventional sidepod design, in line with the likes of reigning Constructors champions Red Bull. Windsor, speaking on a recent YouTube Live, is skeptical that Mercedes would deploy a quick Red Bull beta with the huge improvement. He said, "If you're hoping it'll suddenly make it as quick as a Red Bull, I think you'll be pretty let down. If you're looking for something that might give them a little bit more consistency, a larger sweet spot or operating window as they call it, maybe it'll do that." It was interesting to read what they're saying about the upgrades, which is basically, "This is the start of a new path which we believe, long-term, will take us back to the front and winning races." So the implication is they've made their decision on where they're going with the car, and this is the first step in going in that direction. Whether they're going to get away from the whole zero-pod thing, and this is the first step towards going towards a conventional car, remains to be seen. but my bet is that they're still going to soldier on with this car, but obviously make some changes based on better correlation between modelling, CFD and wind tunnel testing, now that they've got a little bit more testing time, not being the world champions last winter, and that correlation is going to be important in terms of the next step. With Red Bull holding a significant lead in the championship, 122 points ahead of second place Aston Martin, and having won every race of 2023 to date, Windsor envisions a scenario in which development of the dominant RB19 car comes to a halt around the time of the Belgian Grand Prix in July, the final round before the summer break. Only then, he believes, will Red Bull's competitors be able to reduce the gap and challenge for regular triumphs. I think Red Bull will probably pull the plug on development on this car around Spa time, because they'll be thinking already then of 24, and they've got this year's championship sewn up, he said. So at that point, I think that's when you might start to see a Mercedes or a Ferrari, or possibly even an Aston Martin, really pretty close to a Red Bull. But it'll be an artificial thing because Red Bull will be, at that point, beginning to look ahead to 24, a little bit like the back end of last year as well. Following the postponing of the Imola round, Windsor anticipates that several teams will delay the launch of their new parts until the Spanish GP next month, citing the forthcoming race in Monaco as too risky. It's not a place that you'd want to bring upgrades, he said of Monte Carlo. If there was an upgrade on the car at Imola that would have worked at Monaco, by which I mean it would have been on the car for Monaco as well, then they may not be running that upgrade now. But why would Mercedes still do it? According to Gary Anderson, a former Formula 1 designer, this might cause issues. The W14 will get a redesigned floor, front suspension and side pods. As a result, the car's aerodynamic flow is likely to be much different than it was previously. Gary Anderson believes Mercedes will miss the point by delivering the changes next weekend. Hitting the track at Monaco in a car that, if it is to be successful, will have to incorporate a rearranged aerodynamic flow structure could be a problem. Nonetheless, the former Jordan designer believes Mercedes has no option but to go for it. From what we know, the car has had to have some major surgery to be able to package the new side pods and front suspension geometry, so for the team there's no going back. And that is exactly what has happened, as time is of the importance, according to Duncan Elliott, the Brackley squad's head of composite design. It's fair to say the car is constantly evolving, he said in a video on Mercedes' official YouTube channel. In addition to the underlying development rate of the car, there are also event-specific developments that we target, such as the low downforce rear wing for events such as Spa. It's fair to say that the development direction can also change, and try to ensure that we always achieve maximum performance. We work closely with the aero group to optimize the solution ahead of the final release. We then work closely with manufacturing to ensure we achieve the best quality components. The biggest challenge is always time. The quicker you can go from the tunnel to the track and positively impact the race weekend, the better. Mercedes' persistence to bring the new parts to Monaco speaks well for Lewis Hamilton and George Russell, implying that the wind tunnel testing had excellent results. Claire Simpson, aerodynamics group leader, stated that working on the airflow surrounding the automobile is always the first step in any aerodynamic modification. The second part, she continued, of it is then to come up with different ways of trying to target that with the geometry and within the regulations that we have. And then we would do a mixture of testing, so we'd run simulations to try and understand if we can manipulate the flow field in the way that we want to. Then if something was to be successful from that test, we would then take it into a wind tunnel test and try and understand if it's improved the aerodynamic performance or not. Riccardo Mosconi, the team's head of trackside performance, added, "It's all about striking the right balance between learning about the new upgrade and maximizing the performance of that specific race weekend. We need to know exactly what the expectations are in terms of car balance. We need to see if we can match those expectations, if they are translated into the behavior on track. The driver feedback is pivotal when we're bringing a new upgrade and knowing if it performs as intended. The drivers are really good at picking up specific events around the lap and pinpoint them to the engineers. We gather after the debrief and look at those specific examples and find out exactly what was going on at that time and if the upgrade is doing what we're intended to." So what are your thoughts? Will this big update still be introduced in Monaco? And will it deliver them a big enough performance leap that they will join the front of the race? Let us know your thoughts in the comments down below.